Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. And if you are new around here, every single day at 1 p.m. UK time, we release an update just like this one to help you stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space and also the markets more broadly. And that is exactly what we're going to be doing in this video. We are going to kick the video off by looking at this kind of potential risk on period ahead of us. We have largely been in a risk-off period with inflation going up. This, of course, has spiked the dollar being a bit of a safe haven and a kind of uncertainty trade. And, of course, during this time period of risk-off, Bitcoin has been going sideways. Altcoins have got hit pretty hard, which we are going to be talking about. And we're going to be looking at the prior bear into the bull market and how altcoins reacted. And we're going to find and show you something very interesting because altcoins are doing the exact same thing. Bitcoin dominance has been the trade. We are predominantly in the altcoin market because we think altcoins will outperform Bitcoin. And it's very interesting to kind of see the correlation between last cycle and this initial rally for Bitcoin and then the pullback, what altcoins did. And it may give us a bit of foresight for where we're heading. You know, if we are heading into a risk-on period with the sort of slowing down and potential, perhaps albeit short-term turning of the dollar, Bitcoin and crypto could do very well during this time period. We have seen good moves from the dollar already. We've seen some pretty positive moves from the stock market, but you are getting a lot of earnings coming out, lots of them pretty negatives. I know Netflix shares jumped 14% today. You've got Nokia that are now cutting 14,000 jobs, and you've also got the likes of many other big companies out there, including banks, which are obviously being affected massively right now with interest rates coming out this week. So we are going to be covering all that. Then we're going to be looking at altcoins, how they did in the last cycle. Talking about Bitcoin sort of broadly. It's a very lackluster day for news in the crypto markets. Guys, do not forget to go and support allincrypto.com. We are pretty much the only mainstream media outlet that is actually covering, I wouldn't even call us a mainstream media, crypto media outlet that is covering projects that deserve to be covered regularly. We cover lots of niche projects, and we also cover the latest and greatest news. So please do go and check that out and support. Obviously, you had Aptos had a bit of a shutdown. I think it was for about 5 hours, but they have now recovered. We did a fantastic article on blockchain's role in food traceability and revolutionizing the whole industry. But that's enough of me rambling on and shamelessly promoting my own website. But we really do believe in what we're doing there. So let's start things off. You know, we have been looking at, given how things closed here, which was the week of October the 2nd, the start of October, that week produced a dollar candle such as this one. And the flip side to that was we saw the likes of gold have a week like this, where we saw buyers come in. Yes, it was a red week, but we really saw a kind of opposing wick to the one that we saw in the dollar, and we had a week like this for the S&P. This also coincided with our 30 weekly moving average, which is what we use for stage analysis. We are teaching that in the Patreon at the moment, guys, so please do not forget to check that out and become a patron. Well worth it. We did a great meeting where we actually expanded on what we're going to look at today in a lot more detail in regards to, you know, reviewing my portfolio, where we're at, when we think altcoins are going to turn, looking at things like other market dominance and a load of really interesting things. But back to the point at hand, based on this, we kind of had said, okay, maybe we're going to get a bit of a risk on period ahead of us. And you can see that Bitcoin, obviously, for Bitcoin, really, it ran into 30K and has been retracing on inflationary fears with the dollar going up. You can see the stock market did the exact same thing. Gold did the same thing. Debt really took a nosedive with this strength in the dollar. And, of course, this is a housing ETF. All did the same thing. So these are typically the basket of what I would call risk. There are others that are included in them. You could even potentially put oil in there, potentially, but there's the whole dynamic with oil and commodities at the moment. But we'd speculate that maybe you're going to get a bit of a risk on period. Since then, we have seen Bitcoin up. Obviously, I think that was largely helped by the news in regards to the false news of an ETF. That's kind of given us a glimpse of what's to come in the future. Stock market did benefit, but it's now kind of tapering off. I think a lot of earnings are coming out worse than expected. And then gold, of course, absolutely shot up. So we've been very right on that, but it's still a very tricky and trying time. And I think the reason for this is because debt, which is typically associated with risk, they go up at the same time, given that they both have the same driver of liquidity, which is the Fed, has continued to capitulate. And this is scaring markets. You know, debt is at the heart of markets generally. And you kind of... One thing that I think is concurrent with bond traders and people that want bonds is they're all itching to get back into the market. But they've had their toes and fingers, with the likes of Raoul continuing to say, buy bonds, wear diamonds during this period. burnt off, essentially. So this is a bit of an anomaly. You've also got housing, which is getting smashed hard. This is all as a result of interest rates, the Fed continuing and certainly with them not stepping in and buying any 30-year bonds to reiterate a hawkish stance. Very interesting today, actually. You do have Jerome Powell, Fed chair. What am I talking about? Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, coming out and delivering a key speech. Some expectations is the Federal Reserve chairs is set to deliver what could be a key policy addressing Thursday afternoon in New York. Higher for longer on rates has become an unofficial mantra in recent days, and Powell is expected to join the chorus. We've had a lot of Fed speakers this week, by the way. We're just reporting on this one. Market largely expects the Fed to stay on hold with rates, but they will be looking to Powell to confirm clarity. So this could be a really significant day. This is going to affect risk on, risk off. And ultimately, we are still potentially looking at, and we're going to drop down the time frame on the dollar before we move on, at this period of risk on ahead of us. Although this looks pretty strong. If I'm just a first glimpse, currently I'm away, so we're not watching this as close as we would be. But this does look pretty strong to me. Maybe you do have a bit of a double top scenario coming in here, and that could maybe be a very complex right shoulder, but we're not going to call that. The dollar's very strong. We're not necessarily betting against it, but we do think, it is going to have a pullback at some point. Is that now? There are some early signs of that. We will see, and is this going to allow a risk-on period? This, of course, is going to affect altcoins that have got absolutely killed during this risk-off period. But historically, this is how the game goes. This is Cardano overlaid on Bitcoin. This is the initial pump out of the bear market, which I believe we've seen. This is the FTX area where we were one of the only people going long here and calling long on getting back into the spot market. All those videos are still up there. And we even did a Patreon exclusive video where we actually looked to position on the 5th of January. If you do join the Patreon, do scroll back and find that video, well worth a watch. But you can see Cardano, of course, appreciated with the rally and actually outperformed Bitcoin like altcoins will do on the up legs. However, there is a flip side to that, and that is that they outperform them on the downside. And you can see that happened exactly, and it went to put on a marginally lower low, like it is doing today, again, until Bitcoin turned around. And this was, of course, the March crash. We did a fantastic video. One of the only people that really understand the macro context of rates and how they're going to impact the markets, or I believe we understand it. Please go and watch that video after watching this one. It will give you a wider context on what we're talking about. But altcoins are acting in the exact same manner, and they will outperform once Bitcoin gets going again, which is going to tie in with our risk-on, risk-off period, which we've just looked at, which could be on the doorstep. This, of course, is Litecoin. Similar thing, although it didn't go on to put in a new low. Similar to what it's doing today. Ethereum. And then, of course, we've got the likes of BNB, which was very strong, but a newer token. We could have looked at a basket of others. And then they actually went on to outperform Bitcoin massively once the broader market and risk-on had turned. We could be looking at that. As far as Bitcoin goes on the shorter-term timeframes, this is still progress. This is still something that we would class as a stage 2 breakout. If we put it on the weekly and we introduce a 30-weekly moving average. You are still, and you have adhered to support. We said don't short this. Like we said, don't short this. We've been long since down here. Ultimately, the altcoin charts look a lot worse. But we're positioned for when we see those brighter days, which we think is potentially on the horizon. Bitcoin now above the 30-weekly moving average. There could be a real push. For us, we're still very uncertain whilst you're sort of... This doesn't look too weak, actually. At all. And actually, you know what? I'm just going to drop a fib. That's not a fib. I don't think you're going to get anywhere near 50% on this. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. For us, broadly, though, you're still trapped in this range. And we've said you're either going to have more of a downside correction, which is going to see you lose that 25k neckline. So this is the ultimate range, and you need to get above 30. But for me, really, the positive sign is going to be when you actually take this again. You can see that this is a key level around about the 28,500 that we've been struggling to get above. You are still in a short-term range. You're either going to get that head and shoulders confirmation and the deeper C wave, or you're going to take things to the upside, and then you're really going to get rocking and rolling, and you're going to start filling in some of our broader targets, like the bull flag that we have, and, of course, the inversed head and shoulders. So whilst we're trapped in here, we're still uncertain on the short term. We took an uncertain stance and actually started to highlight the possibility of downside here with this marginally higher high. we're still uncertain now on the short term. Mid to long term, go and watch yesterday's video. Take a look at the risk on, risk off thing that we've just spoken about. That's all largely going to determine, whether the short term up or downside scenario actually plays out. So I think that's all we've really got for you guys. We are going to be traveling around a bit. I'm in another location tomorrow. I'm currently visiting family. And then, from Monday onwards, we've got loads of interviews and really good stuff planned for you. So please do consider subscribing to the channel. And we will be back to business from Monday. But we will continue to keep these daily market updates going and continue to highlight these really interesting things day in and day out, as we always do with these daily market updates. And if you have enjoyed this content, a like is always greatly appreciated. So is a comment. And I'll catch you in the next one. Apologies for the sort of background lighting, if you will. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next.